In 2023, we're seeing a fundamental shift in the way B2B buyers want to buy. Yet, many companies are still focused on collecting leads rather than really creating demand in the market. And this is leading to massively unprofitable marketing. But the good news is, there's a better way. In this session, we're joined by Tim Roth, the founder and CEO of Yuyaba, who will share insights of 47 SaaS companies and how their shift to lead gen, from lead gen to demand gen, is driving real pipeline and real revenue. So please give a warm welcome to Tim Roth.
Good morning, ARRtist. Hope you've already enjoyed your first coffee, or your first two. Not sure how fast you're scaling today. But before I start, I want to better understand this audience a little bit. So by show of hands, who's currently running white paper campaigns to collect leads? Come on, I know you are. And who thinks that this marketing approach is the very best way to actually drive pipeline and revenue? Almost no one. Cool, we're already aligned here. I like that. So I would have had a cool video to show you, but I'm not sure it works. Let me check. Okay, it doesn't work. So I will send you this video afterwards so you can have a look at it. It basically shows what companies are doing wrong today when they develop their go-to-marketing strategies, and especially when it comes to marketing and sales alignment. And the thing is that what companies don't understand is how B2B buyers want to buy today. So that's why I want to welcome you to today's topic, which is called From Lead Gen to Demand Gen, and how you can actually start being responsible for pipeline and revenue instead of leads with your marketing teams. And to understand this better, why this shift is so important is that we need to understand that the way how B2B buyers want to buy today has fundamentally changed. It's completely different than how it was like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even 2 years ago. Today, we're living in a completely different world. And I've got 3 very interesting statistics that I brought with me today from Gartner that support this. So what you can see here is the marketing technology tool and its landscape growth from 2011 to 2022. And you can see that in 2011, we only had 150 tools, while in 2022, we had almost 10,000 tools. So that means B2B buyers have a lot of choice today. It's a growth of over 6,500% in just 10 years, roughly 10 years. Another interesting fact is that 77% of B2B buyers find their buying journey difficult and complex. And when we think about how we buy as consumers on Amazon, for example, we wouldn't say it's difficult. It's actually almost too easy, which is why we buy so much stuff. But not in software. In software, somehow companies make it so difficult to buy stuff because they don't understand how B2B buyers also want to buy. And this is the most interesting fact, I believe, and Gartner states that only 17% of buyers actually talk to sales before they make a buying decision. So that means they do their own research, they make their own decision internally, and only then go to sales to kind of place an order, but not to be convinced. And for all the people who are taking pictures, you're getting all the slides at the end, so you don't need to take pictures. You can actively listen. So that means that we're living in a new era today. Up until 2010, we were living in an analog buying era. From 2010 to 2021, we were living in a sales-led digital era. We all know the rise of Salesforce, how they grew super quickly by leveraging outbound sales. And it worked back then. But since 2021, we're living in a buyer-led economy. B2B buyer, they want to be in control today. They want to make their own decisions. They want to decide what to do, where to do things, and also when to do it. And what we must understand are 5 very essential things in a sales experience and also in the buyer's journey, what they're expecting today. First, they're expecting educational content. So when they spend so much time before they talk to your sales team, they want to spend that time with content from you that's very educational. So they want all their questions answered in a valuable way, and they do not want to be pushed into a sales funnel so that you can talk to them with your sales team. And this content they want to consume ungated and frictionless. We all know when scrolling through LinkedIn, we get hundreds of white paper lead ads that we only get to access once we fill out 25 form fields. Who also does not like these kind of ads? Everybody? Cool. I'm not alone. Yeah, so what we want today is we want content in an ungated way, because the deal of getting an asset in return of giving away all our contact information is not fair anymore, while we live in a world where almost everything is ungated on YouTube and other social media platforms. So third, B2B buyers today, they want to talk to sales when they decide to, and not when your sales rep decides to talk to them. So many sales reps are chasing buyers all the time while they have no intent of talking to you at all. So they want to make this decision, now is the right time that I talk to sales. And fourth, they want to access information how and when they want to. We all know pricing pages on B2B SaaS websites, and we almost know already that we go on there, all we get is a talk to sales button, but not a price. And this also already establishes a disalignment between me and the product, because I want to know the price now and not only in a week when your sales team has actually time to give me the price. And I'm already gone on the next product. And fifth, and this is the most important one, B2B buyers today, they do not want to talk to sales in order to be convinced, because they want to make their own research and only talk to sales to place an order, to get led through the sales process, compliance topics, legal topics, and all that stuff, after they've already made a decision. So we are living in a new economy now, and we have a new buyer identity. It's the self-empowered buyer identity. And if we look at the old world, how companies were treating stuff back then, we had a lot of lead gen forms, right? Gated content, white paper campaigns. Marketing and sales metrics were not aligned. They were going into completely different directions. And the content was mostly focused at collecting leads at scale and not focused at really educating your ICPs. And these companies thought, and still think today mostly, that sellers have the power. But there's also other companies who've already understood the shift in the market and how B2B buyers want to buy today, and they are using ungated content. They're doing education on platform where buyers actually spend time. So me, for example, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and I also watch 10-minute videos on LinkedIn. But I don't like to click on some shady link to get on a shady landing page to do a shady opt-in. So these companies, they understand that education must happen on platform where the buyers actually spend time. And this is supported by aligned revenue metrics. So marketing and sales have actually the same metrics ultimately. It's not like marketing is optimizing for MQLs while sales is optimizing for new revenue. Modern organizations now, modern revenue teams, they both optimize for pipeline and revenue, even in the marketing teams. And the content is actually focused on education at scale and not on lead collection at scale, which is a very different thing. It's easy to consume, easy to learn, and at the end of the day, it's also easy to buy for buyers. And these companies have understood that buyers have the power today and not the sellers. And now I've talked a lot about how B2B buyers want to buy today. If you want to dive a little more deeper into that, we've launched our podcast actually just last week. So if you want to have a more deep dive session about this, feel free to check out our podcast. But now you might be asking yourself, well, Tim, this sounds all great, and you've obviously done your research. But like, how do we change now? Like, what's the transition? How does it look like to move from lead gen to demand gen to serve the modern buyer? And this change actually requires the 3 M's, and I call them mindset, metrics, and mechanics. Let's start with mindset. The mindset shift that needs to happen in your organization is the most essential. It's the basis for everything, because if you don't have the mindset, then you cannot have new metrics and new mechanics. So this is really about aligning on beliefs. It's about getting C-level buy-in. And there's 3 essential things that need to happen in your organization. First, you must understand that you need to develop a very deep customer understanding again. It's kind of like going back to the fundamentals. But what's happened is that marketing teams have gotten so comfortable with their 27 marketing tech tools that they forgot to actually pick up the phone and talk to customers. But this is what needs to happen. We need to develop a very deep understanding and ask why 5 times to get to the ground of the pain points. Second, we must move away from how many leads did we collect this month versus last month, and we must move towards how many potential buyers did we educate this month versus last month, and how much pipeline did we generate from this education. So the focus must be on long-term ICP education and revenue, and not about short-term lead chasing. And thirdly, organizations and C-level must understand how buyers want to buy today, and also must understand that the buying journey is not linear and attribution is completely flawed today. And attribution is also flawed and the buyer's journey is not linear because the most relevant touch points between your buyers and your brand and your product, they happen at places that you cannot track at all. And I'm talking about Slack communities that are really relevant. Some of you might be in the ARRtist Slack community, where you get a lot of recommendations about tools, but no one can ever track what's happening there. I'm talking about one-on-one coffee chats, Zoom talks, even podcasts. No one can track what happens on podcasts and who listens to it. So we must understand this. And once we have understood this new mindset that needs to be adopted, only then we can go into the metrics. And for the metrics, we want to start measuring revenue again instead of leads. But since most B2B companies have a rather long sales cycle, we need to also look at short-term positive signals. So that's ICP engagement. If you put a lot of valuable content out, interesting content that's relevant for your ICP, they will engage with it. They will like it, comment, and share. And it's the best sign that the content is actually relevant. And one important thing to note here is it must be ICP engagement, because you could also put out cat videos and get a lot of engagement, which is not relevant. So that's important to watch for. And when you get more engagement with your content, more people will automatically search for your brand and your product on Google. So then you will see an increase in brand lift. Very relevant metric. And when you have more people Googling your brand and product, what happens then? Of course, you will see more inbound website requests. And with more website requests inbound, we call them hand raisers, people that actually want to talk to you. You will see increase in pipeline and revenue. And for pipeline, I highly suggest not having a fixed stage, but rather a fixed win rate. So if your marketing team is required to generate pipeline that wins at least 25%, the stage doesn't really matter. Because win rates can always differ, because marketers are smart. They know a lot of things, how to kind of get SQLs, for example, with Amazon gift cards. I've seen a lot of things. So have a specific win rate that must be generated for marketing teams. And now the question becomes, since the buyer's journey is so complex and not linear, and also dark social is such a real thing, how can you actually know what's driving pipeline and revenue? And just 2 weeks ago, I think, a friend was calling me. He was like, Tim, you don't know what just happened. So I wanted to find out where our deals are coming from. So I went into my CRM and I looked at where they were coming from, the deals. And I saw that 80% come from Google. But I did not trust it, so I went very deep into our CRM. I went into every single deal and looked at what they themselves said, how they knew about us. And what 60% replied was not Google, but LinkedIn. And this shows very clearly the big flaw that we have in attribution today, because software attribution can only measure where demand was captured, which is almost always on Google, while self-reported attribution measures where demand was created, which is almost never on Google, because you can't create a lot of demand on Google. And just because companies rely almost fully on software attribution is why so much budget always gets burned almost on Google ads, for example, and why most companies do not invest in demand creation channels like LinkedIn. But in order to have the full picture, to get the full picture, you must also implement self-reported attribution so that you have a hybrid attribution system. And this is really essential. So now that we've understood what new mindset we need, what new metrics we can create, only then we can obviously adopt a new mechanics, a new execution. Because if we have different metrics to meet, we will be doing different things. Because marketers do different things when they optimize on lead collection, like MQL targets, versus education at scale. So let's look at how this is done through demand generation. Most of you probably know that only 5% of your target audience are ready to buy today. The other 95% are ready to buy tomorrow. Ironically, most companies spend almost the entire marketing budget on the 5% that are ready to buy today, and they only do demand capturing. But the biggest piece of the pie is won by investing in demand creation, because that's when you can actually influence the minds of your customers so that they get faster ready to buy, and then also that your brand is then top of mind once they're ready to buy. So let's walk through the different stages. The first stage is unaware people. They don't know that they have a problem yet. So their question becomes, or the question you need to answer for them is, why do I need to change something? And let's use an example. For example, a content management system, CMS. Companies that are using WordPress mostly don't know that WordPress has its limits and has its flaws. So if you're, for example, a headless CMS provider, you need to answer them the question why WordPress is not good enough anymore, for example. So why do they need to change away from WordPress? Once they've understood this, the next question becomes, well, why do I need to change now? Because just because I know I have a problem, it doesn't mean it's urgent, especially in corporates. So you need to make them understand, well, if you're not switching in the next 2 years, you will have major problems, for example. So you need to create that sense of urgency. Once you've answered why change and why now, the next question becomes, okay, well, now I know WordPress is not the best for me, and I need to change something now. What's a better solution? And even here, you're not talking about your product yet. You're only talking about a better solution, because there's no-code platforms, there's headless CMS, etc. So you're kind of selling them the headless CMS version. And then you're answering how to change. So what does the process look like? Because especially on bigger projects like implementing a new CMS, there's so much that needs to happen in an organization. We all know it. So you need to answer questions like, what stakeholders should be involved in a project? How does a project roadmap look like? What budgets, besides the software budget, do I need to calculate in? What other topics do I need to pay attention to? How about compliance topics, legal topics? All these things. If you help them go through the process, you will give them a lot of courage and trust that they can do it. And then the last question becomes, why you? Why is your solution the best? And only then you start talking about your product. And there's one thing I can guarantee you. If you can answer every single question from being completely problem unaware up until to why is your product the best solution, and you lead them through the whole process already, chances are very high that they will pick your solution as the best one. So we'll be using these 5 key questions. Why change? Why now? What solution? What's the process? And why you? As our fundamentals in order to create demand at scale. Who of you thinks that if you'd be answering all of your ICP's questions from being problem unaware up until to why is your solution the best one, you'd be creating more demand and drive more pipeline and revenue? Yeah, cool, nice. So let's look at how this is done. So over the past years, we've created this methodology that goes from extract to subtract to attract. You extract a lot of knowledge from your subject matter experts. You then subtract the very best parts, and you use them to attract your target audience. So it's very simple. You pick maybe a product manager. We often use founders and C-level because they're very deep into the product and also the pain points and the market overall. And we interview them for like 60 minutes, and we ask them all the relevant questions along these 5 guiding questions that I've just shown you. Obviously backed by a lot of research beforehand so that we know what your customers are asking. And then we subtract the best parts from that 60-minute interview and we create video ad creatives. So usually we get around 10 to 15 video ad creatives from just 60-minute investments of your founder or subject matter expert. And then we can create content that creates demand at scale and in feed. Because we're answering all the different questions and we can use them on LinkedIn, obviously. Organically, but also paid. And when we have a lot of budget, we can show these ads to all of your target groups. How does this look like in practice? I've brought you this example that we've done for ARRtist. They also have a tool for the hotel industry. Some of you might know. And what you can see here, that it's very systematically going along this journey. So we have content about why change, which is the very starting point. Then why now? Then what solution? What's the process? Where you? And we have not only one video, but several videos. Because there's not only one question about why change, but different angles that you can always use. And this is then also backed by more image ads that you can see here on the bottom to really craft this whole compelling storyline, to use different ad formats. Because what you want to achieve is you want to get a very high logo frequency in your marketing, but a low ad frequency. So no one wants to see the same ad 10 times a day, but if you have 10 different ads with the same logo every day, then it's cool. And that's what your goal should be. So some of you might know that we work with a lot of B2B SaaS companies. And now the question becomes, when you create a lot of demand, how do you capture this with very conversion optimized creatives? And I've brought a couple of examples here. So Play, French scale-up. I believe that empathy is a huge thing in marketing. So we created this ad. Well, you're a marketing manager, but you're not a video editor, and that's okay. We understand you, we get you. So here's the tool, use Play. Without editing skills, you can create videos. Also here for Firefeed, we kind of created an ad that looks like a LinkedIn post because we were targeting people that are writing LinkedIn posts. So we understand them better than they understand themselves. Yokoi, Swiss scale-up, very specifically talking to their customer audience. So we addressed CFOs already. Now we'll do quickly now. One last ad, because I think I'm a huge fan of not doing boring stuff. Also in B2B, you can create really cool, appealing things. So for Sastrify, we created this ad, 99 IT problems, compliance ain't one, with a very sophisticated and professional target audience, I have to say, but it worked wonders. And if you get to create all of this demand, then you get to capture even more demand, which leads to less low quality leads, but a lot more pipeline and revenue. And I want to finish my speech with one last question. If people could see what you see, know what you know, believe what you believe, would it be easier to sell your product? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tim.